That night, the council debated long into the dark hours, trying to decide whether to trust the species that had just revealed itself to be the most violent civilization they'd ever encountered. The vote came the next morning. It was close, but fear of the one out. Humanity was granted emergency authority to coordinate the galactic defense, immediately sent a message to Earth, and within days, human military advisors began arriving at council stations throughout the galaxy. Commander Sarah Jackson was the first to arrive at the home world. She was a career military officer with 20 years of experience, and she looked around the ceremonial defense headquarters with barely concealed dismay. They showed her their fleet with pride, beautiful ships with elegant lines and sophisticated shields. Jackson asked to see their weapon systems. "We have plasma cannons," the admiral explained. "They are calibrated to disable enemy vessels without destroying them. It would be dishonorable to kill unnecessarily." Jackson stared at him. "Admiral, they are coming to kill every living being on your planet. Honor isn't going to stop them. We need to recalibrate these weapons for maximum damage. We need to kill ships, not disable them." The admiral looked horrified. "But that would be barbaric." "Yes," Jackson agreed. "War is barbaric, that's why you're going to win. Now show me your tactical planning room." The same conversation happened across council space. Human advisors arrived and immediately began tearing apart everything the council species thought they knew about conflict. Captain Wei, one of his relatives, worked with the industrial centers. "You're building ships one at a time," he observed. "Like works of art, that's not going to work. We need mass production. We need to build ships fast and cheap. They don't need to be perfect. They need to be numerous." The engineers were offended. "Our ships are masterpieces. Each one is unique." "They don't care about your masterpieces," Wei said bluntly. "They'll destroy them all the same. We need 500 ships in 3 months. Can you do that?" "Not without sacrificing quality." "Good, sacrifice it. I'd rather have 500 decent ships than 50 perfect ones. Quantity has a quality all its own." The humans moved through council space like a storm, changing everything they touched. They established supply lines, something the council had never considered necessary. They built fortifications, turning peaceful stations into defensive strongholds. They created intelligence networks, teaching the council species how to spy on their enemies. But most importantly, they taught tactics. Lieutenant Colonel ran a training session for mixed-species combat units. The trainees stood in formation, a bizarre mix of Meridian and a dozen other species, walked down the line looking at each of them. "Your species have lived in peace for thousands of years," he said. "That's beautiful. That's admirable. That's also made you weak. They are coming and they're going to kill you unless you learn to be something you've never been before. You need to become killers." A young raised his hand. "Sir, we are not killers, we are civilized beings." "So were we," replied. "But civilization is a luxury, soldier. It's something you get to have when no one's trying to murder you. Right now, they are trying to murder you, so you have a choice. You can die civilized, or you can live as killers and return to civilization later." He pulled up a tactical display. "Humans learned something over thousands of years of warfare. We don't fight fair. We don't fight for honor. We fight to win. That means ambushes, traps, lies, deception. It means sacrificing pieces to gain advantages. It means doing whatever it takes to destroy the enemy before they destroy you." Over the following weeks, drilled them relentlessly. He taught them human tactics refined over the pincer movement, where you attacked from 2 sides simultaneously; the feint, where you pretended to attack one place while really attacking another; the fighting retreat, where you pulled back deliberately to lure enemies into traps. The council species struggled with these concepts. They were used to direct confrontation, to announcing their intentions, to following rules of engagement. Humans taught them to break all those rules. "Warfare is not a game," explained to a group of council commanders. There are no points for style. There's no referee to call fouls. There's only winning and losing, surviving and dying. They understand this. Now you need to understand it too. As the months passed, the transformation was remarkable. Council ships that had been designed for exploration were retrofitted with weapons. Stations that had been open and welcoming became fortified defensive positions. The peaceful species of the galaxy learned to think like warriors. But the humans did more than teach tactics. They taught strategy. Grand Admiral Tors, humanity's most decorated military officer, worked directly with the Council's top leadership. They expect you to defend your home worlds, Tors explained, pointing at a star map. They're counting on you to put your fleets here, here, and here, protecting your most populated systems. That's what any sensible species would do. Chancellor nodded. Of course, we cannot abandon our civilians. Which is exactly why we're going to abandon them, Tors said, and the room erupted in protests. He held up his hand. Not really abandon them, but we're going to make the think we have. We're going to put minimal forces at the home worlds, enough to look like we're defending them but not our main fleet. Then where will our main fleet be? Asked. Tors smiled. Here. He pointed to a seemingly empty region of space between the approach vector and Council space. We let them think they're winning. We let them push deep into our territory. Then we hit them from behind, cut off their supply lines, and trap them. It's a strategy humans used over 2,000 years ago. We call it the Canna maneuver, after a battle where a smaller army destroyed a larger one by surrounding it. Representative looked doubtful. That requires letting them attack our worlds. Yes, Tors agreed. It requires sacrifice. It requires accepting losses to gain victory. That's war, Representative. You don't win by avoiding losses. You win by making sure your enemy loses more. They arrived ahead of schedule, their massive fleet dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Council space. The general broadcast another message, expecting the same response as before, fear and chaos. Instead, he received a reply from Admiral, commanding the Council Defense Fleet. General, I am Admiral of the Galactic Council Defense Force. You are trespassing in sovereign space. Turn back now or face the consequences. The general laughed. You dare threaten us. We have conquered 17 systems. We have destroyed fleets 10 times the size of yours. What makes you think you can stop us? His face appeared on the screen and his smile was cold. Because we've been doing this longer than you have. See you in battle, General. They attacked the outer systems, expecting the same easy victories they'd had before. Instead, they found resistance. Council ships fought with a ferocity that surprised them. They didn't follow the usual patterns of engagement. They ambushed from behind asteroids. They lured ships into traps. They sacrificed damaged vessels by ramming them into formations. But still they advanced. Their numbers were too great, their ships too powerful. System after system fell just as Tors had predicted. They grew confident. They pushed deeper into Council space, heading for the core worlds. That's when the trap sprang shut. The Council's main fleet, hidden in the empty regions of space, emerged behind the advance. At the same time, the defeated forces that had been retreating turned and attacked. They found themselves surrounded, their supply lines cut off, their reinforcements too far away to help. The Battle of the Tertian Nebula became the turning point. The general, realizing he was trapped, decided to break through the encirclement by force. He personally led the attack against the section commanded by Admiral. The two fleets met in the swirling gases of the nebula and the battle was brutal. Ships exploded. Crews died. But the Council forces fought with a determination born from human training. They knew their tactics. They knew their purpose. And they knew, because humans had taught them, that sometimes you had to be willing to die to achieve victory. The general's ship, a massive dreadnought that had destroyed countless worlds, closed with his flagship. The general broadcast a message, still confident despite his situation. Human admiral, you have fought well, but you cannot win. We are the... We have been warriors for 2,000 years. War is in our blood, you cannot match our heritage. His response became legend throughout the galaxy. 2,000 years, he said, his voice filled with contempt. Your entire civilization has been at war for 2,000 years and you think that makes you warriors. My species has fought 2,500 separate wars in that same time period. We've had more wars than you've had years. You're not warriors, General. You're amateurs. He leaned forward in his command chair. Let me show you what real warriors can do. The Council fleet executed a maneuver that humans had used over 2,000 years ago at Cana. They formed a crescent, drawing thee into the center, then closed the sides like jaws. The fleet found itself compressed, ships unable to maneuver, firepower neutralized by proximity to their own vessels. It was a massacre. The dreadnought took fire from all sides. The general's last transmission was a single word: impossible. Not impossible, replied. Just tactics, you should have studied history. The battle ended with the fleet destroyed. The survivors, less than 10% of the original force, fled back toward their own space. It was the first time in their history that they had been defeated. The war continued for several more months, but the momentum had shifted. Human-trained Council forces pushed the back system by system. They discovered that victory required more than superior numbers and powerful ships. It required strategy, tactics, and the willingness to adapt. The humans taught the Council all those things. Finally, after 6 months of fighting, the requested peace negotiations. They had lost too many ships, too many soldiers. Their proud warrior civilization had been humbled by species they had dismissed as weak. The negotiations were held on a neutral station. The delegation arrived expecting harsh terms. Instead, they found Ambassador waiting for them. We could destroy you, said simply. Push you back to your home world and orbital bombard it until nothing lives. We have the tactics. We have the weapons. We could finish what we started. The ambassador tensed, waiting for the demand for surrender. But we won't, continued, because humans learned something over our thousands of years of war. We learned that the most dangerous enemy is one with nothing to lose. We learned that total victory often plants the seeds of future conflict. So here are our terms. You return to your original borders. You pay reparations for the systems you destroyed. You agree to a 100-year peace treaty with full observation. And in exchange, we don't turn your home world into a graveyard. The ambassador was stunned. You would show us mercy. We're showing you wisdom, corrected. Mercy is for the innocent. You're not innocent, but you're also not stupid. You've learned that you can't win against us. That's enough. Take the deal. They agreed. The war ended not with annihilation, but with containment. They remained in their space, chastened and cautious. The Council celebrated victory. But in the aftermath came the uncomfortable question. A special Council session was called to address it. Stood once again in the center of the chamber, but this time the atmosphere was different. They had seen what humans could do. They had won because of humanity's violent past, but now they faced their saviors and some of them were afraid. Representative voiced what many were thinking. Ambassador, we owe humanity a debt we can never repay. You saved us from extinction. But now we must ask, what's to stop you from doing to us what you helped us do to the... You have shown us how dangerous you are. You have trained our forces in human tactics, but you could just as easily use those tactics against us. The chamber fell silent, waiting for response. She looked around at all the faces, understanding their fear. She had known this moment would come. You're right to fear us, she said simply. We are dangerous. We know 10,000 ways to kill, and we're creative enough to invent more. Every one of your ships now carries weapons designed by humans. Every one of your soldiers has been trained in human tactics. We've given you the knowledge to fight, but we've also shown you how easily we could defeat you. She paused, letting that sink in. But here's what you need to understand. You had peace because you never knew war. You lived in innocence, believing the galaxy was a safe place. We have peace because we know war too well. We've seen our cities burn. We've seen our children die. We've held enough power to destroy our entire world and chose not to use it. Our peace is not innocence. It's a choice we make every single day. Walked around the chamber looking at each representative. Every human alive today carries the weight of our violent past. We are taught about our wars from childhood. We study them, analyze them, learn from them. And you know what the most important lesson is? That war should be the last resort, not the first choice. We know what war costs because we've paid that price thousands of times. She stopped at the center. You want a guarantee that we won't turn on you? I can't give you that. No species can truly guarantee peace. But I can tell you this. Humanity has spent 50 years in your council, learning from you, trading with you, becoming friends with you. We've built relationships, established trust, created bonds. And humans value loyalty. We value friendship. We value the choice to build instead of destroy. Chancellor stood slowly. Ambassador, the council must vote on how to proceed. But before we do, I want to ask you one question. In your entire violent history, with all your wars and conflicts, what made humans finally choose peace? Thought for a moment. We realized that the enemy wasn't each other. The enemy was war itself. We realized that every war, no matter who wins, leaves everyone worse off. We learned that the warriors are the ones who never have to fight. And we learned that true strength isn't about how many battles you can win. It's about how many battles you can prevent. She looked directly at the thought they were strong because they could conquer, but they lost because they never learned when to stop. Humans have learned that lesson. We've learned it through pain and blood and ashes. And now we're teaching it to you. Not just how to fight, but when to fight, and more importantly, when not to. The vote was held. The council decided to accept humanity not just as members, but as permanent military advisors. Human military academies were established throughout council space, training the next generation of defenders. But the curriculum included more than just tactics and weapons. It included human history, ethics, and philosophy. Because the humans insisted on teaching not just how to win wars, but how to prevent them. 10 years later, Commander Jackson stood in front of a class of mixed-species military cadets. They were the first generation to grow up after the war, trained from the beginning in both council peace and human warfare. Today we're studying the Battle of Tertian Nebula, Jackson said. Can someone tell me why we won that battle? A young raised her hand. Superior tactics, the Canna maneuver. Good but not complete. Anyone else? A cadet spoke up. Because we were willing to sacrifice. We understood that some losses are necessary for victory. Jackson nodded. Also true, but there's one more reason, the most important one. We won because we understood something that didn't. War is not about being the strongest or the most ruthless. It's about being smart enough to avoid it when possible and disciplined enough to win it when necessary. She pulled up images of Earth's history. The wars, the destruction, the rebuilding. My ancestors fought thousands of wars. They made every mistake possible. They learned through pain what you're learning through teaching. And you want to know the most important thing they learned. The classroom was silent, waiting. They learned that the best warrior is the one who never has to draw their sword. The strongest military is the one that prevents war through deterrence and diplomacy. And the greatest victory is the one where nobody has to die. She looked at each cadet in turn. You're learning human tactics because the galaxy is a dangerous place. But you're also learning human wisdom. Use the tactics only when you must. Seek the wisdom first. That became the motto of the Council Defense Force. Wisdom first, tactics when necessary. It was carved above the entrance to every military academy in Council space, a reminder of what humanity had taught the galaxy. The peace held. They remained in their space, no longer threatening expansion. Other aggressive species saw what had happened and reconsidered their own ambitions. The Council, once vulnerable, now stood strong. And humanity, the violent species from Earth, The civilization that had spent thousands of years perfecting warfare became the galaxy's guardians, not because they loved war, but because they understood it. Not because they were the strongest, but because they knew when to use their strength and when to hold it back. Ambassador, now elderly, gave her final speech to the council before retiring. When I first came here, you feared us for our violence. Then you needed us for that same violence. Now you trust us despite it. That's the lesson, isn't it? Violence isn't good or evil. It's a tool. What matters is who holds it, how they use it, and most importantly, when they choose not to. She looked out at the chamber, at the representatives from 47 species living in peace. We gave you the tools to fight, but more importantly, we gave you the wisdom to choose peace. That's humanity's real gift to the galaxy. Not our weapons or our tactics, but our understanding that peace is worth fighting for, and sometimes the best way to preserve it is to be ready for war. The galaxy learned, and it endured. The emergency alarm echoed through the Grand Council chamber, a sound that had not been heard in over 3,000 years. Ambassador Wei hurried through the crystalline corridors of the station, her shoes clicking against floors that reflected the stars outside. She had been on the station for only 6 months, still learning the complex web of galactic politics that held together 47 different species. The chamber was already full when she arrived. Hundreds of beings from across the galaxy filled the tiered seating, their varied forms creating a tapestry of color and shape. The tall and thin, with skin like polished silver, stood in small groups whispering to each other. The short and covered in fur gestured frantically with their forearms. Even the usually calm Meridian floated in their containment suits, their gaseous forms swirling with what had learned to recognize as agitation. High Chancellor called the session to order. His species, had led the council for 2. He was old even by their standards, his blue skin marked with the patterns of age and wisdom. "The situation is grave," announced, his voice carrying easily through the chamber. 3 days ago, the Dominion destroyed the system. All 7 billion inhabitants are gone. This morning, they sent us a message. The holographic display activated in the center of the chamber. A warrior appeared, easily 3 meters tall, covered in thick armor that seemed to be part of his body. His eyes were black and cold. "Galactic Council," the general said, his voice like grinding stone. "You have lived in peace for too long. You have grown weak and soft. The Dominion claims this galaxy by right of strength. You have 6 of your months to surrender. If you resist, we will destroy every world, every station, every ship. We do not negotiate. We do not compromise. We conquer." The image vanished. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted over each other, their translators struggling to keep up, sat quietly, watching and listening. She had read the reports about In just 3 years, they had conquered 17 systems. Their military was vast and brutal. They had appeared from beyond the galactic rim like a storm, and they showed no signs of stopping. Chancellor raised his hand, and slowly the chamber quieted. "We must discuss our options. Each member species will share what resources they can contribute to our defense." One by one, the representatives spoke. They offered their advanced shield technology, the promised their industrial capacity. The Meridian would provide their expertise in energy systems. But as each species spoke, noticed a troubling pattern. None of them spoke of weapons. None mentioned tactics or strategy. They spoke of defense as if it were an engineering problem, not a war. The representative explained that their last war had ended 400 years ago, a brief conflict over mining rights that lasted 11 months and resulted in 73 casualties. They had not fought a war in over 1,000 years. Even the term war seemed to mean something different to them. They spoke of ritual combat, of honor duels between small forces, of conflicts that lasted a season at most before diplomats resolved the matter. Began to understand something troubling. These species had enjoyed peace for so long that they had forgotten what real war looked like. Their militaries were ceremonial, more like police forces than armies. They had no standing fleets, no weapon development programs, no military academies. War to them was an aberration, a failure of diplomacy that happened rarely and ended quickly. Finally turned to her. Ambassador, humanity is our member. What can your species contribute? The chamber fell quiet, could feel the eyes upon her. She knew what they thought of humanity, the primitive newcomers, the species that had only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago, the people from a backwater planet on the edge of the galaxy who had begged to join the council and been accepted more out of kindness than necessity. Stood and walked to the center of the chamber. She looked around at all the faces, human and alien alike. Then she asked a simple question. How much time did they give us? Blinked his translator, catching up. 6 months. Did you not hear the message? I heard it said, 6 months, that's more than enough time. A ripple of confusion moved through the chamber. The representative, a dignified female named, spoke up. Ambassador, I mean no disrespect, but humanity's technology is centuries behind ours. Your ships are slow. Your weapons are primitive. What could you possibly offer in 6 months that we cannot do ourselves? Smiled, but there was no humor in it. You're absolutely right, representative. Our technology is far behind yours, but there's something you need to understand about humanity. We don't need 6 months to prepare for war. We're always prepared for war. The chamber erupted in confused murmuring, held up her hand. I need to request something from this council. Give me 2 hours of your time tomorrow. Let me present a full briefing on human military history. After that, you can decide if humanity has anything to offer. Looked uncertain. Ambassador, we are facing an existential threat. We don't have time for history lessons. With respect, Chancellor, you have time for this one. What I'm about to show you will change how you see this problem. It will change how you see humanity. And if you let us, it will change how they see this galaxy. Something in her voice made pause. He looked at for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Very well. Tomorrow morning you will have your 2 hours, but I warn you, Ambassador, if this is a waste of the Council's time, humanity's membership will be reconsidered. Nodded, fair enough. But Chancellor, I need you to be prepared. What I'm about to show you is disturbing. It's violent. It may make you see my species differently, but it's the truth, and right now, the truth is what will save us all. That night worked late in her quarters preparing the presentation. She compiled data from Earth's military archives, historical records, strategic analyses. She organized it carefully, knowing she would have only one chance to make her case. Her assistant, a young human named, brought her coffee at midnight. Ambassador, you should rest. Big day tomorrow. Looked up from her work. Do you know what we're about to do? Show them our history. We're about to show them the monster under the bed. These species have lived in peace for thousands of years. They think war is a minor disagreement that gets resolved over tea. Tomorrow, they're going to learn what war really means. They're going to learn what humanity really is. Was quiet for a moment. You think they'll be afraid of us? I know they will, but better they fear us than at least we're on their side. She returned to her work. Get some rest, tomorrow changes everything. The next morning, the council chamber was packed. Word had spread about the human presentation, and curiosity had drawn even those who normally skipped sessions. Stood at the center, a small human woman surrounded by beings twice her size, and waited for silence. When the chamber was quiet, she began. Good morning. My name is Wei, and I'm here to tell you about war. Not your wars, not ritual combat or honor duels. Real war, human war. And I warn you now, what you're about to hear will be difficult. But you need to understand what humans are, because in 6 months they are going to find out. The holographic display activated, showing a map of Earth. Took a breath and began humanity's story. Let's start 5,000 years ago, she said. And I'll warn you now, we're only going to cover the major conflicts. If I listed every war humanity has fought, we'd be here for months. The presentation began. and the council chamber fell into a silence that would soon turn to horror. The holographic display showed ancient Earth, thousands of years in the past. Cities rose and fell in the display, armies marched across continents. Started with the Bronze Age, showing the endless wars between city-states in Mesopotamia, Egypt, and China. The shifted uncomfortably as the numbers appeared. Wars that lasted decades. Casualties in the hundreds of thousands from populations of only millions. The war, said, and the display shifted to ancient Greece. 27 years of continuous fighting between Athens and Sparta. They destroyed each other's crops, burned each other's cities, killed each other's children. And when it ended, both sides were so weakened that another power conquered them both within a generation. Representative raised her hand. "Excuse me, Ambassador, did you say 27 years? Your people fought for 27 years over what?" "Territory, resources, pride, political ideology," shrugged. "Does it matter? They fought because they could, because they chose to, because they believed their cause was worth the cost." The display continued. The Punic Wars appeared, showing Hannibal crossing the Alps with elephants to attack Rome. 3 wars spanning over a century. The Mongol invasions, where horsemen from Central Asia conquered the largest land empire in human history, killing an estimated 40 million people. The 100 Years' War between England and France, which actually lasted 116 years. A representative stood up, his fur standing on end in distress. "Ambassador, please, you said these were the major conflicts. Are you telling us there were more wars than these?" "Hundreds more," said quietly. "Thousands if you count every border skirmish, every civil war, every rebellion. In the year 1914 alone, Earth was home to 73 separate armed conflicts, but we're getting to the really important part now." The display showed Earth again, but this time it was modern, industrial. Factories, railways, cities of millions. And then the map of Europe exploded into war. World War I, said. July 1914 to November 1918, 4 years and 3 months, the first truly global conflict. On one side, the Allied powers, on the other, the Central Powers, 30 nations involved, over 70 million military personnel mobilized. The numbers appeared on the display, and the chamber went dead silent. 40 million casualties, 20 million dead, 20 million wounded. The weapons used included poison gas, machine guns, tanks, aircraft, and submarines. Entire generations of young men were wiped out. Some battles lasted months and killed hundreds of thousands for gains of a few kilometers. Let that sink in. She could see the horror on their faces, the look like they might be sick. Even Chancellor, who had seen many things in his long life, looked pale. "That must have taught your species a lesson," said quietly. "Surely after such devastation, humanity embraced peace." Looked at him, and her expression made him lean back in his seat. 21 years later, we did it again. Only this time, we were better at it. World War II appeared on the display. The scale was staggering. The war spread across every continent except Antarctica. Europe, Asia, Africa, the Pacific Islands all became. 6 years, 1939 to 1945. Over 100 million military personnel mobilized, 85 million dead. The Soviet Union alone lost 27 million people. China lost 20 million. Germany lost 7 million. Japan lost 3 million. The death toll was so high that we still don't have exact numbers. Walked around the chamber as she spoke, making eye contact with different representatives. We fought in deserts where the temperature reached 60 degrees. We fought in frozen tundra at 40 below zero. We fought in jungles, mountains, cities, and oceans. We fought on islands so small they don't appear on maps. We fought underground in tunnels and high in the sky in aircraft. The display showed footage of the battles, tanks rolling across fields, ships firing massive guns, aircraft dropping bombs. The council members watched in growing horror as human beings killed each other with industrial efficiency. And at the end, said softly, we developed a weapon that could destroy an entire city in seconds. We used it twice, killed over 200,000 people in 2 attacks. The weapons were called atomic bombs, and they changed everything. She showed them the footage of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the mushroom clouds rising into the sky. The cities turned to ash. The shadows of people burned into walls. The Meridian representative, speaking through its translator, asked the question they were all thinking. You used weapons that could destroy cities, and you didn't destroy yourselves. We almost did, admitted. For the next 45 years, we lived in what we called the Cold War. The major powers built enough nuclear weapons to destroy all life on Earth several times over. We pointed them at each other and waited. One mistake, one miscalculation, and everything would have ended. Do you want to know how many nuclear weapons we built? Over 70,000. Each one more powerful than the bombs that ended World War II. The display showed a map of Earth covered in target markers, showing what would happen if the weapons were used. The planet would become uninhabitable. The council members stared in disbelief. But you didn't use them, said. Why not? Because we learned, said. We learned what war costs. We learned that some weapons are too terrible to use. We learned that winning isn't everything if there's nothing left after the victory. We learned restraint, discipline, and control. For 45 years, we held the power to end our world, and we chose not to. She changed the display again, showing statistics. Let me give you some numbers. In our recorded history of approximately 5,000 years, humanity has been entirely at peace for only 268 years. That's about 5% of our existence. The other 95%, somewhere on Earth, someone was fighting a war. Pulled up more data. We've developed 180 distinct martial arts. These are systems of fighting, passed down through generations, refined and perfected. We've created 340 major weapon systems. We have 27 independent military doctrines, theories of how to fight and win wars. We've written thousands of books on military strategy, some of them over 2,000 years old and still studied today. She showed them footage of human military training, soldiers running obstacle courses, practicing with weapons, studying tactics. Even in peacetime, we train for war. Our children play war games. Our entertainment includes military strategy simulations. Our sports are often combat-oriented. We don't just know how to fight. We practice it constantly, even when there's no one to fight. The display shifted to show different types of warfare. We've fought on every type of terrain, underwater in submarines, underground in tunnel networks, in frozen wastelands and scorching deserts, in dense jungles and on open plains, in cities and in wilderness. We've adapted to every environment Earth offers and learned to fight there. Representative stood up, her voice shaking. Ambassador, what you're describing is not a civilization. It's a war machine. Your entire species has been in a state of nearly continuous warfare for your entire history. You've killed billions of your own kind. How are you any different from the... Stopped walking and faced directly. Because we're here, representative. We could have destroyed ourselves 1,000 times over. We had the weapons. We had the reasons. We had the anger and the fear and the hatred. But we chose not to. Every single time we pulled back from the edge. We chose to build instead of destroy. We chose peace, even though war is in our nature. She looked around the chamber. You want to know the difference between humans and the fight because they don't know anything else. They conquer because conquest is all they understand. We fight because we choose to, and we stop fighting because we choose to. That choice, that ability to say enough, that's what makes us different. Brought up one final display. You asked what humanity can contribute to this war. Here's my answer. We can teach you how to fight, not your ritual combat, not your honor duels, real fighting. Dirty, brutal, efficient warfare designed to win at any cost. We can show you tactics that are thousands of years old and strategies that we developed in our bloodiest conflicts. The display showed organizational charts, weapon designs, tactical plans. In 6 months, we can transform your ceremonial defense forces into real militaries. We can teach your soldiers how to think like warriors. We can show you how to coordinate across species and systems. We can help you build weapons that will make them think twice about attacking you. Chancellor stood up slowly. And if we give you this authority, Ambassador, what guarantee do we have that humanity won't use this power against us? You've just shown us that your species has spent its entire existence perfecting the art of war. Why should we trust you? Met his gaze steadily. Because we know what war costs, Chancellor. Every human alive today is descended from survivors of wars. We carry that trauma in our collective memory. We know what it's like to lose everything. We know what it's like to rebuild from ashes. And we know, better than anyone in this chamber, that the best way to preserve peace is to be ready for war. She gestured to the display. They think they're warriors because they've conquered 17 systems in 3 years. We've fought 2,500 wars in the last 2,000 years. They're not warriors, they're amateurs. And if you let us, we'll teach them what real war looks like. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then Chancellor spoke. The Council will vote tomorrow on whether to grant humanity emergency authority to coordinate our defense. Until then, this session is adjourned. As the representatives filed out, could hear them whispering to each other. Some looked at her with fear, others with disgust, a few with something that might have been hope. She had shown them the monster under the bed, and now they had to decide whether to let that monster protect them. Approached her as the chamber emptied. How do you think it went? Gathered her materials. They're terrified of the yes, but also of us. That's good. Fear is honest. Fear is smart. Tomorrow they'll vote and we'll see if their fear of thee is stronger than their fear of humanity. That night, the council debated long into the dark hours, trying to decide whether to trust the species that had just revealed itself to be the most violent civilization they'd ever encountered.